We are live. Good to see you today, my EOS friends. We have a fantastic show for you today. We have Bonz here. He is from the Prospectors project, which is a really cool new game that's coming on EOS, a massive multiplayer online real-time economic strategy game, which is going to kind of blow your mind when you start looking at how in-depth and fun this game is going to be. This is one of the few games that I'm looking at it like, oh, maybe I should get early and try to like take over the world here because this one looks fun. So anyway, Bonz, welcome to the show. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you, man. It's awesome. Thanks for having me. It's an honor really to be on your show. I was just mentioning to you, I've seen all your shows, and it's an honor to be here, man. I'm actually excited to be representing Prospectors on your show because as you just said, it's actually an awesome game, and I don't feel like it's got a lot of coverage yet. So I'm happy to be here introducing it to everybody.
Yeah, for sure. This game is super fun. I just dug pretty deep into it like I do before all my interviews, and was kind of really amazed actually. Like, okay, this, like I said, this is one I might try to get a little team together and go hard on this one. So as we start the show here, like always, what do you think the most interesting thing in general EOS that's going on right now is?
Man, right now, there's always so much stuff going on, but I guess with, we're now in May, so I guess we'd say, June 1's coming up. It's now a month away. Rex just went live. There's so many things going on, but I would say what I'm excited about is, just where all this stuff with gaming is going. And, of course, I'm here representing a game, but all the other games, what Mythical Games is doing, ITAM games, NFTs in general, and where this is all going, I think it's going to be, huge.
Yeah, and Prospectors as well. Prospectors, Mythical, ITAM, Pixios has got some game stuff coming out. It's just like, and then I start to think a little bigger picture because I've got like a VR rig, so I start thinking of VR like high fidelity and blockchain and all these games, and it's just, we're like kind of on the brink and the NFT tokens of this really immersive line blurring between reality, games, blockchain. Like, yeah, it's a crazy time, man. I love it.
Exactly. And where how Prospectors ties into that is it's you could basically start a business in this game, and it's going to be, you could see where this is all going in virtual reality, where people are going to be having this whole, sort of second life happening, in the game. It's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I think about, because Prospectors has to do with like gold mining and the whole ecosystem around that. And we'll get into an overview of Prospectors, but it like initially makes me think of, like Brock Pierce and Brendan Bloomer and those dudes when they were mining gold in World of Warcraft, and they were some of the first people, and they set up these big businesses around World of Warcraft gold mining, and then, became where they are now. It's it's an interesting start. There's some interesting synergy there for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, those guys were kind of, pioneers, and then the fact that they're now kind of, driving the ship, it's really promising for where EOS is going,
Yeah, it's a wonderful time. And I'm headed out to June 1st. I'll be at the event in Washington, D.C. So.
Awesome. I hope to see you there, man.
Oh, you'll be there too? Cool. Yeah.
Exciting stuff, man.
Yeah, I can't wait. Can't wait. Rad. So let's dig into Prospectors, because this is just like too interesting to put off for very long. Why don't you give a brief overview of what the game is?
So basically, it's sort of replicating the real economy of the 19th century gold rush. And so, and everything that goes along with that, there's lots of ways to actually, earn in the game. It's not just about gold mining. It's about, it's that the play to earn model that we've been, hearing about is in full effect in this game, and, so there's, multiple ways you can be earning in the game. You could be, looking for work. You could be mining minerals. You could be manufacturing things. You could be trading goods and minerals and speculating. So there's really, really it's not just about, mining gold, but it's, it's really an economic strategy game. So, and as we were talking about before, that like, joining forces with your friends, it really encourages cooperation and working together, which is one of the things that I really like about the game. Sort of helping each other, helping others is the way we, help ourselves, sort of the mentality of linking up with other people and working together for, to just sort of grow your community within the game itself, is really cool. And so just like the gold mining days, there was, more fortunes were made by the shopkeepers and the merchants than the actual gold miners themselves. So I think a lot of that will sort of carry over, and the pick, selling the picks and shovels, so to speak, will be, I think one of the ways to prosper in the game. And as you know, some of America's, greatest industrialists got their start in the gold rush. So it's like, businesses and fortunes will be made, and it'll be fun to see the game unfold.
Yeah. So the game, the kind of the look of the game initially made me think of something like Age of Empires. So for people who haven't seen it, you can go online. There's some cool EOS, very cool, has a good overview of like some gameplay, but it looks like kind of Age of Empires from the top. But then the strategy and all that is obviously a lot different. But so how's the game start? It sounds like people come over on a ship and then go ahead. Yeah.
Well, yeah. You sort of just start by looking at the map, right? So each player controls 3 workers, right? You sort of start by looking at the map. The map shows where your workers are, and of course, there's if you want to move your workers around, the further the distance they have to travel, the more time that it takes. And what you're really looking at when you're looking at the map is you're able to see, buildings, you're able to see, the available work that's happening on all the available lots. You're able to see the lot info, whether or not that lot is open, available to rent, so to speak. You're also able to see the actual resources that are above the ground. So when you look at the map, you're actually looking at trees and rocks and things. And those are useful items in the game, and those items are actual resources that you can sell for money. So I think that's one thing that's like unique about the game too, is it's basically like they're starting this game where they're like distributing these resources all over the map that are just there for the taking. So a beginner player with not a lot of money to spend, you could make your way in the game just by wandering around the map and gathering up resources and selling those resources for gold. Gold is the in-game currency, and it's used for all the economic processes. So, so the map shows, trees and rocks, but then also what it's not showing is on each lot, there's also underground resources, iron, clay, coal, and of course gold, right? So as you move around the game board, the map, the world, you would then find a lot and could explore that lot and see which underground resources there is. And then, you find a lot that has some good amount of resources, and then you can rent that lot, and then that lot belongs to you, and you can basically, you're free to set up whatever commercial enterprise you want to on that lot, whether it's like building a building or a mine or, manufacturing operation or whatever. And then once you own that lot, you have the right to, store things there. There's like a storage on every lot. There's also sort of a jobs board where you can post up your work. So if you need some materials moved from one lot to another, you can post up a job for that. Or you need help building your building or your mine, you can, post up a job board. You say how much you want to pay, and anybody who's playing the game can just, see your job posted up, and they can come and work for you. And that's another way to earn in the game, is the jobs, so there's a lot of ways that a player can come into the game and earn without having to, spend a bunch of money. You could basically go and help other people work and do jobs or collect resources, and actually trade those resources on the open market. And so, so when you actually rent a lot, there's like, 3 types of like buildings or commercial enterprises you can engage in. Extraction, which would be like mining something right out of the ground, the coal or the iron ore or gold, of course. And with each of those, you could then build a mine. So then you're more efficient. You can be, it's like a more commercial operation version of extracting those resources. Or you could do a processing building, so you build like, say, a sawmill, where then you're taking the trees and turning them into boards or girders, or you build an iron furnace, say, where you're like melting down the iron ore into steel plates that could be used in the manufacturing building. So there's manufacturing, which would be like a tool shop, sort of a cart factory is another one, where you're taking the raw materials and you're assembling them into other finished products that can be sold. And all of those different types of buildings all produce something that can be sold in the open market. So whether you're mining coal, you need to sell that to, say, the iron furnace guy is going to need coal to keep his fire going, right? Or if you have a sawmill and you're making boards, everybody needs boards to build, say, the tool shop, or build higher level buildings, so it's like, no matter what type of building or operation you have going, people need those resources. So they're all basically equally important, say, you have a coal mine, it's not as sexy, but everybody needs coal. So it's like, just by starting a coal mine, you have a legit business within the game, where you're going to have the iron furnace guys and the brick shop guys. They all need coal, right? So, you can start all these different types of businesses, and you're an important part of the in-game economy,
Yeah, there's going to be all these holes to fill, especially initially, all these holes to fill as far as like what businesses are needed. And it seems there'll probably be some sort of progression as to what sort of businesses are needed. It seems like in the beginning, some will be needed more than others, but then as the economy develops, there's probably other businesses needed. How about like down the road? Is there like what businesses are there? Second level businesses, like, well, yeah, so what's that look like?
Right. So all the businesses that that are available at the beginning, they all can be upgraded. So basically, They start with a level 1 building, right? So and as you move on through the game, you'll continuously upgrade your business, and then you'll continually be able to build, more and more things, So, there'll be, wherever you start, there'll be a continuous, and there'll be a lot of development going on in the game. They talk about things in the original white paper about railroads even. So, I mean, you could tell they have a real long-term vision and where the game is going and what could eventually be built. I think really the sky's the limit. I think that, the game could go on indefinitely, and I think they could just keep adding more and more levels to the buildings, and you're making more and more, complicated versions and goods and services that you can sell. And I think that there's a lot of development still that can happen to continuously improve the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder like how the monopolies and things like that start to play out. It seems like it's going to be such an interesting cutthroat environment of people trying to kind of because if you're getting like a more advanced business and you can kind of get a head start, and then you can kind of continue to stay ahead, it'll be important for people to see where they can get, or as fast as they can, basically.
That's true. But what I would say is I think they've done an amazing job at really making sure that there really is no type of unfair advantage. Like they made it really difficult to actually even make any sort of monopoly, honestly, because, if anybody sort of has any sort of control over any one resource, there's nothing stopping anyone else, so the prices say get high for, say, tools, say there wasn't a lot of tool shops and someone say has it. Well, then the price for tools high, so there's more incentive for more people to go build more tool shops. So because of the free market, I think it'll really balance itself out. And I think that, they've really thought about, so many things that like to make it so that there isn't a way to monopolize any of the in-game resources. I know during the beta, it was like there wasn't a lot of, say, stone, and I think that the developers were really responsive to people saying like, hey, people sort of picked up all these stone lots and sort of were able to monopolize the stone, which is a really needed resource in the game, right? So of course now they've spread the stone out everywhere, just like real life. There's stone everywhere, and there's trees everywhere, and there's coal everywhere, and there's iron ore everywhere. So it's like, they've really done a good job to really plan ahead and really make it sort of fair and fun even if you don't have a lot of money, that you can still go in the game and sort of make your way in the world, so to speak, right? Like, I like all the sort of, ways that they've sort of like mirrored the economy, back, in the original gold rush days. So like, there was people who showed up with nothing but, their backpack and a gold pan and tried to make their way. And, of course, a lot of those people, went broke, but of course, then a lot of those people started businesses and started selling things to the miners. And, the rest is history, so to speak. But, Levi jeans, right? Like, the picks and shovels, was it Studebaker, right? He was making wheelbarrows, right? And then went on to make an auto, empire, right? So it's like it's kind of the same thing in the game. You could start just by doing transport jobs. If you didn't have a lot of money and didn't want to like make a big investment in the game, you could theoretically work your way up, get some tools, build yourself a little shop, and start from scratch and really make your way in the game and actually build a business. And what's cool about it is you're making real money. And what this whole play to earn model, what I think that this game really is like doing, which is going to be such a game changer, is like, it enables like, people from anywhere in the world really to play this game with everybody else and still have a fair chance to really make your way in the game and sort of build a business if that's what you're trying to do, and it's kind of fun for everybody in that respect.
Yeah, that is cool. So let's dig into those tokenomics just a little bit. It sounds like, so let's say the way to keep someone from having a monopoly is to keep them from controlling, let's say, all the stone. And so what they do is they spread that stone over, thousands of plots. You're not going to be able to get all the stone.
Exactly.
So if someone, someone new to the game walks in with just their backpack, like you're saying, and they can find a plot, they can start mining stone basically, and then go in and selling that. And then there's this guy, let's say that he's been already mining stone for a few months and he has a stone factory or something. So he's mining a little bit more stone. He's mining obviously more stone than this guy. When those two go to sell it, it's going on to like an open exchange, or what's that look like?
Exactly. So there's like a marketplace in the game for all of the resources, from the raw resources to the manufactured resources to the actual finished products. And so I guess to your example, yeah, the guy who's got, say, an iron ore mine, he's going to be mining more efficiently than the guy who's picking up iron ore off the ground with his bare hands. So he can probably afford to sell it at a better price. He's probably more efficient. And so, and that's the free market. And that's kind of the same with all the different things in the game. Like a beginner player can walk around and collect trees and sell trees, but sell them to the sawmill who's going to process them into boards or girders or beams or whatever. And they all can then sell them on the open market. And so of course, yeah, the more advanced building you have is going to allow you to be more efficient, hire more workers. You get more people making products for you. You're going to have more products to sell. But the free market really comes into play and really balances out all these sort of market forces, and kind of just like in real life, kind of makes it, sort of fair for everybody to get their foot in the door. If you can collect a material off the ground, you can sell that material. So if you can have a competitive price to sell that material, people will buy it from you instead.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Cool. Okay. Yeah. Because see, I'm thinking that, as a factory gets bigger, they're going to have more overhead. It sounds like they're going to have workers and things that need to be employed. So
Right.
they're not going to be able to just get bigger and then drive the price down
Absolutely.
to drive small people out of the market, because they can't drive the price down all the way because they have to pay for workers. Okay. Yeah, that's so cool.
And the cost of building that building. So you figure, it's just like real life. And this is what's cool about the game too, is it sort of teaches a lot of basic sort of business skills. Like I could see this being a benefit to sort of, maybe a younger person who's just learning about, market economics or accounting. Because basically, yeah, like it can get, as you noted, it can get really involved, right? Like the game's pretty involved. When you want to build a building, there's a lot of things that go in, a lot of these raw materials. How much do those raw materials cost you? How many hours of labor do you add into it? And you got to kind of factor in all those things to know like how much you should actually be selling that item to actually be turning a profit. You know, you don't want to be like wasting your time, basically, you know. And so there's a lot of sort of accounting things to be taking note of when as you're progressing in the game of what that item really costs you and how much you should really be selling it for. What is the fair market price of an item? Because maybe the cost that it took you to produce that item, it might take someone else a little less to produce that item, and maybe they can afford to sell it a little cheaper, you know. And so yeah, there's a lot of forces at play that sort of will dictate what the free market will decide is the fair value for all the goods and services, you know, throughout the game, you know.
Yeah. Well, I'm an economics major, so I love thinking. Yeah, I love thinking through that type of stuff. But you know, one of the things that you're talking about the learning here, it's like real world learning, real world experience. I mean, / video game experience. But that experience is so invaluable. That's something that, you know, a lot of our education system is missing, is real practical knowledge about business and money and things of that nature. And so that is a really cool angle, and I see it being really useful because so many people play video games these days. So many you know, especially the young kids are coming up and they are learning a lot from video games, and you know, not progressively less from school and more from like in-game things. You know, a lot of the like half the millionaires I know came from some sort of like video game angle at this point, you know, and they grow up, you know, and they look back and they say, yeah, like the stuff that I made money on was the stuff that my parents were and people were telling me not to do. I was wasting my time, you know, and it's like it ends up having this anyway. So video games are not the waste of time that people thought they were. And also there's angles like this where they start to teach these really important principles. So it's pretty cool to see that.
It really is like sort of a game changer, because, you know, like, you know, going back to when we were growing up, you know, a lot of the video games were sort of like, you know, just sort of, you know, wasting time or whatever, you know, where now you really have these like educational tools. And I mean, I know you brought up VR earlier, and I don't know if you saw that video, but you can see that basically where it's going with education, you know, where you're going to see like these games become more and more used as tools. And so Prospectors is awesome because, like, you know, you're going to have like not only the tools to be able to like teach people how to, you know, basically run a business or how the free market works, but then you're actually able to earn real money while you're doing it. It's not like just wasting your time. You're putting in all these hours playing a game, but you're actually kind of sort of building a little in the game that's actually theoretically producing real money. I mean, you're earning gold in the game, and that game or that gold can be, you know, right within the game transferred to PGL tokens, which are traded on exchanges. So it's cool how this is all linking back to, you know, this whole, again, play to earn model, and how you can have fun and play a game, but also actually be potentially earning real money while you're doing it. It's a game changer, really.
Yeah. So yeah, let's dig into that process right there a little bit. So the gold is the in-game currency, and then let's go from in-game currency to like US dollars in your bank account.
I gotcha. So yeah, and it's the same. It's the same from US dollars in your bank account to play the game, right? You're gonna take your EOS and you're gonna buy some PGL. I think it's on Nudex and probably a few other exchanges. When you start the game, you're gonna enter the game world with your PGL, and you're gonna turn that PGL into some gold. Or I mean, you could start the game from scratch with no money probably, and earn some gold, and take your gold that you earned in the game and you know, I think right within the game now you're able to exchange the gold that you earned in the game for PGL tokens, and those tokens are traded right on Nudex. So if you're playing the game and you do a bunch of transport work, or you do some construction work and you earn some gold, or you sell some coal or sell some trees, hustle trees, you're earning gold, and that gold can just be transferred right into PGL, and that PGL can be traded right on an exchange like Nudex for EOS, which, you know, now depending on what your fiat on-off ramp is, you can turn that right back into US dollars. So yeah, it's actually pretty easy to get your gold in the game or get your gold out of the game, so to speak, you know.
Yeah, that's a cool, I mean, that kind of fluid transition between real world money and or real world crypto and in-game items it's cool. We haven't actually seen, can't think of a good example of that being a real fluid thing yet, as far as like game, earning within game and turning it into real crypto, real money.
That's true, and I really think that prospectors will be one of the first, because the game comes out just in June. The end of June is when the actual launch is scheduled. And if it's not the first, it will be one of the first that you can start a game with no money. Obviously there's the casino, all these casino dApps are sort of first, and now you're seeing all these real games starting to be developed where it's not show up and gamble, it's show up and play the game and potentially earn these NFTs in the game that you can then sell for real money. Mm-hmm. And so speaking to that, I know you had talked about getting a little head start. So I guess I'll use this opportunity to bring it up. There's an auction going on right now for assets in the game. You can go on, the Prospector's website. There's a link right to the auction from there. And basically you're using the PGL tokens, which again, you can just buy right on Nudex, to sort of bid for tool packs or entire buildings even. There's sets that they're auctioning off, which allow you to start the game with everything you need to build an entire building, which is really cool. So, because as you can imagine, you show up in the world, if there wasn't any buildings, like where would the tools come from? So some people have to start the game with some infrastructure already being built, right? Yeah. So, like you can go on the auction right now. I think there's a set they're calling the beginner set, which is sort of a set of an assortment of tools, one of every tool, basically. There's a researcher set, which comes with a gold pan and a pickaxe, I think, which allows you to go explore the different lots and try to find a gold lot to rent if that's your thing. There's also what they call a speculator set, which is a set of 50 tools. So you could basically start the game and immediately be selling tools, or just have yourself a grip of tools to be, trading with other players, or have a head start in building or whatever. And then, like I said, the building set, which is actually pretty amazing, because it takes a long time to sort of gather up all the materials you need to build a building, right? You need to get the right tools, you need to get the right materials. So if you were starting the game from scratch, you would need to, gather all the stone, gather all the trees, buy some nails from the iron furnace worker, but by buying an entire building set, you're able to actually just start the game with the entire amount of supplies that you would need to build that building. And so then it's just a matter of time, right? You got your workers that you start the game with, you got your 3 workers. You can then begin constructing the building with your workers, or you could set up work order and start hiring some of your friends to come help you whip up your building, and then, work it out with them, be paying them, but also, and that's where the cooperation thing comes in too, because, it's really about like, having a group of people to sort of help each other out, right? Your friends can work for you, maybe you'll hook them up with some tools at a discount, maybe when your building's done, or some, some wood or whatever to help them build their building. And that's one of the cool things I think about the games, the aspect of, really like sort of working together with your neighbors or just anybody in the game, Cool. I was sort of recruited by this group of dudes, during the beta, and we all helped each other out. And these, I was working with people from all over the world. And then, we have our own little, you start your group on Telegram, right? And then you start your own little like community of people that are sort of, an alliance, so to speak, of people working together, helping each other out, all for the common goal of, making it further in the game.
Nice. Well, if anyone's listening to this and is getting ambitious, hit me up. Let's get a little Telegram group, and let's get some alliance going. A Prospector Alliance, the EOS Podcast Alliance.
You're more than welcome to come join ours too, man. I look
there.
Forward
You
to
go.
If you need any help in the game, by all means, ask me, man. I got you, bro. I'll help you out, man.
All right, cool.
You need some street. I'm your guy.
Yeah. All right. Well, then maybe I'll just hop on your alliance in there and see what's going on. I like that.
Exactly.
We'll be the Rockefellers of the we'll be the Illuminati of the prospectors world.
Yeah, there's a few already. There's a few that I've heard people talking about. I think there's a few people, and I've seen people pop up in the Telegram. Who's got a union going, and people are sort of starting their own groups on Discord or whatever. And it's cool. It's cool to see, you know, and just similar to how all of our little communities sort of start. I'm sure you're involved in a handful on Telegram. You know, you have your sort of groups that you're in. That's kind of like your groups, you know, your guys, your community, you know, your people that you're bouncing info back and forth with, whatever. And so yeah, it's cool to see how these groups sort of spring up, and within now this game, there's sort of communities that are specifically going to be working together in the game, and I love to see that, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Well, tell the developers that I want to start a central bank in the in the
They
game.
mentioned that, dude. They mentioned that in the original white paper, you know, and
That's great.
and you can see where that's going, right? So like, there's going to be, you know, like someone comes in the game and they want to start building a building, but they don't have the funds. Well, there's going to be a place for you to borrow funds, and I can't speak too much to that. I have no idea how that's all going to work out, but I do remember the original white paper them actually mentioning a bank. And so the other thing that they talk about in the white paper, which I find really interesting, is you know, of course, like we've been talking about the alliances, or you know, they mentioned unions, you know, right, which is just sort of basically like, you know, a unity of players with the aim of cooperating for mutual benefit. They also sort of talk about forming commercial organizations, which is essentially like a private company that you're starting within the game, where a group of players can essentially, you know, band together and you know, pool resources, or make a joint account. I'm not sure how it'll work with, you know, whether it's a multi-sig account or whatever, but have accounts that sort of multiple players can access, and you know, allow other people to kind of join the organization, and you know, build it as like a, you know, a business, basically like a private business, where you could then be, you know, starting, you know, your own sort of little empire with a group of people within the game, you know.
Yeah, that's good. That is, it's like they set this, they kind of set the game free at these beginning stages, but as it progresses, like you're saying, the future is kind of unlimited. Have they thought about it, like them changing ages, you know, or like, you know, changing time periods at like a few years down the road, or is that?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about that, but that's a really good question. And like I said, in the original white paper, they did actually mention railroads. So it almost does seem like there's a plan to sort of progress the technologies within the game. But yeah, it definitely starts out pretty rudimentary and you know, just very basic. But yeah, I think that the game development will continue. And as far as the game development, so you know, like going back to you know, renting a lot, right? So there's what they call the state, right? Is sort of like the organization that you know, it's actually a DAO. It's a decentralized autonomous organization, right? That will actually sort of collect the funds. And there's you know, a number of different funds that they've actually that will be set up, like a fund of new lots, like to expand the game. Once more and more players come into the game, they'll need to eventually just keep expanding the map. So they'll keep reintroducing that money back into the game by making more gold and more resources in all those additional lots. There's also like going to be one fund set up specifically for staking. So you know, rewards for staking your PGL, of course. And then the other, you know, and a lot specifically will be a fund will be for development of the game. And all of this will sort of be run by the token holders. So the token holders will act as a board of council. So it's a lot like EOS, right? So the more tokens you hold, the more sort of voting weight you have. So by participating in the, you know, the in-game sort of governance, by holding a lot of tokens, you actually have a weight and can sort of vote and have a say in the future development of the game, and you know, where the development is going, and actually, you know, have a stake to vote and to say what you think should happen with the development of the game. If you're a large token holder and you've been investing, you know, in the game and holding onto the token and staking that token, so not only will you be rewarded with, you know, staking rewards, but you'll also sort of have a part in actually what you were just suggesting, right? Like, where's the game going to go? You know, it's actually the token holders are going to get to decide that. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. I mean, that's one of the, so when you think of a game like World of Warcraft, one of like the big drawbacks was people would be really frustrated with the direction of the game or the updates. And some of the updates, people would lose items or they didn't like the updates, and you know, that was like one of the big big frustrations with
Right.
when changes happen to massive multiplayer games. But if the token holders have a say in it, and they're not losing items because the blockchain's there to enforce that, that fixes some of those like kind of pain points for massive multiplayer as it stands.
Right.
So.
And I think that on that same note, I think that in part of the birth of this whole like NFT sort of movement, right? Like those exact issues that you just brought up have been, talked about for a while. And so like now, like prospectors, when you buy an item in the game, you own that item, and it will be, similar to these other games where you have ownership of that NFT and it's secured on the blockchain as your own item. So there's nothing the game can sort of do to sort of take away your item, right? Of course, like things like the lot, you're actually like paying rent on your lot, right? So you pay that rent goes to the state, right? And of course you have to continuously sort of pay that rent when the rent is due, right? Just like real life, right? They're going to come, you don't pay your taxes, they'll come seize your property or whatever, right? So in the game, if you don't, pay your taxes, they can then confiscate your property, right? And everything that's on that lot, will actually go to auction, right? But the items that you actually own, that you've earned in the game, or say the tools or the materials, those are your items to own and control and do with what you want and sell. And so yeah, I think that's one thing that's unique about where this is all going is the ability to actually own unique ownership that's secured by the blockchain, and they have their own sort of version of NFTs. So I know with like Mythical Games and and Scatter set up the D Goods marketplace, right? Well, so I think it's called Simple Goods. The simple marketplace is Simple Assets. Simple Assets, yeah. So that was developed, I believe, by I think it's Crypto Alliance is the block producer who's been was working on that. And I think the deal was they were already working on that when Digital Goods was starting to be proposed. So I think that they just continued making their own sort of version. But so the Simple Assets marketplace will be where you could basically take those NFTs that you've earned in the game and sell them,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually had a talk with Crypto Alliance about Simple Assets, and it's kind of a there's a pivotal time in the NFT development right now because ITAM Games has their own standard. Mythical Games has their own standard. Then there's D Goods, and there's also Simple Assets. Actually, I think Mythical Games is D Goods.
D Goods, yes.
So D Goods, Simple Assets, and
ITAM. I think there was some talk about ITAM using the D Goods standard, but then that wasn't. And I'm not sure if they're working on that or if they're developing their own or what. But yeah, you're right. And obviously, it will be beneficial in the future if they can all be sort of working together or create a standards that they're sort of interchangeable. But as for now, like you said, it is the Simple Assets that prospectors will be utilizing.
Yeah, in Simple Assets, the way that I understand it, if someone wants to dig deep, go listen to the Simple Assets podcast. But Simple Assets has the most ownership over an item, so that they've taken it to the furthest really? Level of non-fungible tokens. There's some nuanced differences that make a difference as far as the ownership goes. And man, I don't have it on the top of my head, but go check that out because there is a difference between these NFTs and how they function. So anyway, something to look into.
That's great info. I actually didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So with NFTs in the game, are they planning on maybe some artwork or things like that within items, or is that?
So like I said, there's a marketplace within the game. There's sort of just a tab that opens up sort of the marketplace where then you have the options, and it's basically just all the different types of items in the game. And like I said, they're kind of separated into the different sort of where the raw materials are separate from, say, the finished goods. And like I said, they all have a use. There isn't any that are really any more or less important. So that's what's kind of cool too. Is like everybody's going to need tools in the game, but in order to make tools, you still need wood for the handles, and you still need the iron plate to make the tool out of, right? So in order to get that, you still need the iron ore mine, or you need the sawmill to be cutting the boards. So it's like it really all ties together. They've done a great job of really making sure that all the various sort of enterprises are all sort of necessary, and they all work together to make all the different various goods, right? So that's really cool. I mean, they did really done a great job of really the economy itself and how it works in the game is like, I feel like what will make the game successful, because it really has to work, and really like eliminating advantages from sort of the like sort of buy your way to win sort of mentality like a lot of games have, where it's kind of not fun if the guy who comes in with not as much money just doesn't have a chance to sort of play the game or compete. I think they've really done a lot to sort of eliminate that and make it really fun and fair for everybody at every level to come in and sort of play the game and have a chance to sort of build your own little niche within the game where you can actually make money,
Yeah, and I mean that game dynamic is hugely important. So it's good they took that into account. I mean, but it's part of video game design is this idea that if you're behind, there is a chance to catch up, because if not, then no one's going to play from behind. They just aren't going to play. So, exactly. An easy example, something like Mario Kart. If you're in 8th place, then you keep getting like red turtle shells and you keep getting the lightning bolt. Your car goes a little faster. You have a chance to keep playing. You get in 8th place in Mario Kart, you keep playing because you're getting better stuff. So. Anyway,
right.
Makeup logic's important. It doesn't have to be makeup logic, but the chance for someone who's just starting out to be able to play competitively is important for sure. So,
sure.
Yeah. I have so there is an initial start. I guess it's in June at some point. And how's that initial launch going to be? What's that look like?
So the tentative date for the launch is June 29th. They've actually issued what they're calling a golden ticket, and it actually allows people into the game a few days early. And actually, we have a small handful of golden tickets that we're going to give away to you that you can sort of give away to your community and sort of meet up with all your friends in there, get everybody in early, get you guys all able to walk around, check out the game world, and sort of stake your claim, find a good spot. Because of course it helps to kind of be set up near your friends. You kind of pick an area of the map where you're kind of close, because it takes time to walk back and forth. So of course, the closer you are to your friends, the quicker it is to transport goods back and forth. And you're almost sort of starting your own little sort of town in the game, right? Because your friend might have the sawmill, and you might have the iron furnace, and another person's going to have the coal mine. So of course, everybody setting up kind of near each other is of course beneficial. So the golden ticket is an NFT. It's actually available right now. You can go buy it. I think right now it's up to 30 PGL. It's been raising incrementally. Anybody who wants, you can go right on prospectors.io, buy the NFT golden ticket, they're calling it. It enables you to get into the game 3 days early before everyone else. And we're going to have a handful of those for you to give away to your people. So however you want to make a contest or whatever you're going to do, and distribute those out to your community, your followers.
I actually know exactly what I'm going to do. So everyone listen up here, my podcast friends. I'm going to start a Telegram channel. Just DM me, and we'll get in a Telegram channel. DM me with your idea of what you want to do with your golden ticket, like what you want to mine or what part of the community you want to be, and then we'll get a little Telegram group together, and then we'll cooperate with Bonz's team here. But DM me with what business you want to start and whatever idea you have for us to push forward a little community, and we'll get you a free golden ticket from Bonz. So. So DM me. It's as easy as that. But have an idea when you DM me. Don't just DM me and say I want a golden ticket. DM me tell me what you're starting and what we're going to do together. It'll be fun.
Great idea, man.
Yeah. And then we got Bonz, as a support team with us too. So we'll team up with him down as we get started too. So
yeah, by all means, man, if anybody has any questions, I'm around, I'm on Telegram, hit me up. It's all about helping each other out, and like you said, you start your sort of alliance and work with our alliance. All the alliances that work together. It's a work together sort of thing. That's what the encourages, and that's what's so cool about it.
That's right. Actually, I have a kind of interesting question about the economy, because we talked a whole bunch about like the whole surrounding economy, but at the heart of this is gold mining, just in the same way that at the heart of the gold rush was gold mining. All the pickaxes, and everyone got it's the famous story about everyone getting rich selling the pickaxes to the gold miners, but there was still the gold miners, and the reason they were mining was because there was a chance of striking it rich. So these are like the kind of crazy people who are like, I'm going to either go broke or die
trying.
Yeah, exactly. So what is there?
So there's definitely that mentality, and it's funny because when we were testing the game, there is like that sort of what do they call it, gold fever, right? Like everything changes all of a sudden once you got that gold pan and you start seeing gold coming out of the ground. It definitely it hits you. You get a little bit of a bug, and it's exciting, and it's strange. The game itself is strangely addicting for not having a ton of action or graphics. It's totally addicting because once you start building something, you really want to see it through, and you really once you see that gold coming or people getting gold, you really see people like, oh man, I really need to, you feel that like sense of urgency of like wanting to hustle, want to get your hustle on, right? And that's what I think is cool too, is like, it sort of plays kind of get a little philosophical here. It kind of plays on some of the sort of primal instincts of a person, right? Everybody's sort of like, bartering in general, right? And just collecting goods in general, right? You could sort of see how it could be, sort of addicting to sort of want to gather up all your materials and be bartering, because you could make your way in the game just from sort of being a trader, being a barterer of sorts. It's a free market, so basically, if you're playing the coal game, you could be paying attention to say the price of coal or the price of trees or whatever it is, and be just hustling trees. You could be buying trees when someone's selling them for cheap and then reselling them for more expensive. You could be gathering trees off lots that are open and then just selling those on the open market and then taking that profit and buying some iron ore and hustling that on the open market. So it's definitely like there's the aspect of just bartering and trading in general, which I think is just goes back to the beginning of time of people wanting to gather and people wanting to barter goods and services with each other, right? And so it really touches on that sort of primal instinct of humans in general to want to sort of trade and engage in commerce with each other. And it also sort of touches on the sort of aspect of, I think people inherently want to be in a community or sort of like work together, right? We're sort of drawn together and want to say, how can we work together to sort of help each other, right? And and it's similar to you see like in a lot of these games now where like I'm not really a big gamer, but from what I've heard, people play Fortnite and they sort of gather there. They're like hang out. They just want to meet up in the game and hang out. It's not even just about shooting people. It's about like hanging out and doing dances or whatever, right? Trading skins or whatever they do, And so I think that this game really sort of nails it because it sort of encourages sort of like building a community. You want to kind of go in there and hang out with your friends, and there is actually a chat in the game now as well. They just implemented that since the beta as well, but yeah, like just getting people together, you form your little community, which is I think what people want to do when they get in a game anyway, is sort of interact with people and kind of just hang out with your friends, and then also take part in this sort of bartering and this trading of goods that are, hey, you got some trees, I need some trees, I got some iron ore, you might need some iron ore, It's sort of figuring out how you can help your neighbor and what they can do to help you, and how it can all work together. And I think they nailed it.
Yeah.
Those sort of human aspects of
I mean, it's like the human aspect is the free market. It's interesting to see like when you just say it's a free market and then let people go, like all of a sudden all these human interactions pop up kind of almost organically. And
Totally.
it's a little bit of a testament to the power of of free markets and markets in general as this tool for human interaction. We naturally interact, and there's all kinds of interesting things that start happening. So yeah, it is cool to think of that. So is there some veins of gold or some giant gold nuggets, or is
Oh,
there some sort of
absolutely.
thing for the gamblers?
Oh man, there is the mother lode, so to speak. I remember in the beta, like, because people are sort of in the chat and everyone's kind of like, comparing, well, how much gold are you getting out of this lot? Because of course it varies, just like real life, right? So you might find a spot and you got to mine it for a minute, and that's why they sell, or what they're auctioning off, calling it the researcher set. So you can basically research a couple different lots and see how much gold is there, basically, because all the lots contain different amounts of gold, and even the developers don't know what's on these lots, right? Because of course that would be an unfair advantage. So nobody really knows. It's not unlocked on the blockchain until a player physically goes to that spot, pulls out their gold pan and their pickaxe. They do some prospecting, and then you can sort of make an assessment of how much gold is on that lot and whether it's worth it to rent that lot, or go all out and build a gold mine on that lot and actually, start extracting gold at a commercial level. Yeah, it's really fun to see, because everyone was sort of comparing, how much gold they were getting, and of course, like, someone will pop in and be like, I was getting the mother lode of gold, and everybody starts getting excited about it, So they've definitely sort of planted, little eggs of the massive sort of gold strikes. They're in the ground somewhere in the game, which is cool too. Like somewhere on that game board, on that game world map, there's plots that are going to contain a crap load of gold, which is real money in the real world, right? You can sell those for PGL, you can sell for EOS. Now you're selling them for back to fiat currency if that's what you're trying to do. But yeah, they've planted the seeds there, and they're there for the taking, which is kind of cool, And anybody could find it, Anybody with a gold pan and a pickaxe could get lucky and research that spot and find that gold vein, like you're talking about. That's like striking it rich, so to speak.
Yeah, the underlying incentive, kind of the heart and driver of the whole game, the thing that kind of keeps it going, is that chance of people striking gold somewhere. That's what the whole economy is kind of built on, is like these people out there. The people are out there exploring, trying to get rich, and then all the more conservative people slowly making money off the people who are trying to get rich.
Just like the real gold rush, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, something like 40,000 people, 1848, 40,000 people left for Northern California with dreams of striking it rich, and something like only 5% of them actually became gold miners, and less than 1% of them ever actually made a fortune in gold. But that driver, that economic driver of there's gold, there's a chance of gold, sprung this whole economy where there were fortunes made. And as we talked about earlier, you got Levi's jeans, right? That's still a company today. They got their start by selling jeans to gold miners, right? Mm-hmm. And Wells Fargo, right? You got these companies that are that got their start basically by setting up and taking advantage of this economy that all sprung up over a discovery at Sutter's Mills in California, right?
Yeah. What's interesting overall about this project is that we talked in the beginning of the show about blurring the lines between the physical world and the computer world, or the blockchain and VR and all this. But what they're possibly touching on here is the same set of human emotions, same set of human incentives for the first time kind of within a video game, because there wasn't this like analog to the real world before that was necessarily possible without blockchain and without kind of the technology where it's at, without video games where they're at, without blockchain. But now you can take almost all of the same human emotions and incentives that were present in the actual gold rush and throw them into a game and see what happens. It's like it's a pretty cool experiment.
And it will work, and I've seen it. Even just from playing the beta, you see these glimpses of where people are really excited about it. And that's how I really knew, like, this game is going to work. It's going to be a success, because when there was no money to, it was all just, during the beta test, the tokens weren't real. You couldn't actually take them out of the game. Yet people were really going hard and really committed to trying to make it work, And so just seeing that happen, really made me realize that the game will get traction, because they've done such a good job, but also because, like you said, it really touches upon those same sort of human emotions that are, that will drive and build an economy, right? So, and it will work, and the game will catch traction for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they just took an idea that's basically been proven. There's people getting in wagons and driving, and going for 3 months.
8-month journey.
Yeah, and they were dying on a 3-month journey for these incentives. So, like, clearly the incentive structure is there. So it's pretty,
right.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah.
Oh, man.
The same emotional drivers that drove people to, get on a ship and sail all the way around, Cape Horn, on these huge, long, arduous journeys, or, like you said, on a covered wagon across America, where you're, like, risking your life, basically, all in the pursuit of, this shiny metal rock, gold, that people have valued since the beginning of human civilization, basically,
And now we've got digital gold. So
absolutely.
That's what a shift.
Yeah, it's a lot better, it's a lot better for the environment.
Yeah, exactly. Huh? Very cool, man. Well, I can't wait to get started. And a reminder to people to DM me in Telegram. I'm actually going to Yosemite this week, so for a few days. So if I don't get back to you on your DM, I'll get back to you. Don't worry about that. But let's start a little clan.
Yeah, you got to start a little group, man. You got to start a little alliance, the Happy Money Man Alliance, and build it up.
Sounds cool. I wanted to ask you a question. Actually, you've got the art on the wall behind you, and I think you do glass blowing and stuff, right?
I do, man. I'm a glass artist by trade. I just recently started a little site, EOSWriter.io. I'm making some chestahedron based art, and yeah, man, I've loved making art for the community, and I've up until now too been able to only trade my art for EOS. So I basically work for bandwidth. Yeah. I work for network resources. So if you're interested in checking out any of my glass, go check it out, man. Thanks for the plug on that.
Yeah, for sure, man. And it's killer stuff. And I love the chestahedron. I just got to see Frank Chester, the dude who invented the chestahedron.
Oh man,
yeah,
I got so jealous, man.
Yeah, I got to meet him and have him go through the whole how he invented this shape, which is wild. There wasn't a 7-sided, equal-sided shape. People didn't know about it. People know about squares and triangles and these shapes that have equal sides, but no one knew about the chestahedron until he discovered it, which is pretty wild, to go this far along without knowing about a shape. So anyway, chestahedron's
so cool.
So cool.
I got to watch it online, thank goodness, because I was really wanting to make it out there. And once I found out that he was speaking there, that Brock was coming and he was speaking there, I wanted to go so bad, and I just couldn't make it. But I've watched that video. I must have seen it 10 times so far, and I keep pulling out little bits and pieces from it. And I swear I've been having like epiphanies just since, because I'm making these chestahedrons all the time, and I'm thinking about the relationships of the ratios, and and how it all kind of goes back to the golden ratio. It's like, it's almost like a manifestation of the golden ratio itself in art in a 3-dimensional form, and it's seen all throughout the actual shape itself, and it's so cool, that talk, and it's really cool that you were able to be there for that, man.
Yeah, super cool. And I've been recently researching like these ancient civilizations and megaliths and all these, all this old buildings and structures and all this stuff that's like in the, all this things that are so like unknown, like mysterious. But the one thing they kind of have in common between like, the pyramids and the Aztec pyramids and the Egyptian pyramids and then like, Stonehenge and all these things is they all have to do with geometry and all these different principles that we have kind of forgotten about or lost more recently. So it's kind of cool to see, there's this fluid connection of geometry throughout human history. And it's one of like the one things that's always been there. So it's really cool to anyone who's interested in that stuff. I've been digging into ancient history and megaliths. So hit me up about that. I love that stuff.
So cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So cool.
So yeah, man, I have a chestahedron for you, man. I'm gonna send it over to you. So after the show, you'll have to give me an address for you, and you'll be able to have some display some sacred geometry right there in your office.
Surely, man. That's freaking rad. I would love that. I would love that. Thank you.
Awesome.
Cool.
And
well,
thank you so much, man, for having me on and letting me talk about prospectors. It's really cool for me. I'm excited about the game. I'm a fan of it myself. So having the opportunity to be able to actually like represent the team and talk about this game that I already kind of love and wanted to play anyway is like so cool,
Yeah, killer. I can't wait. This is one that I'm actually going to be playing. Most of them I don't find enough time to play, but this one is got me interested. So where can people find I guess right now the next thing is for the early start tickets, the golden ticket for people to get to the magical land early. How do people get a golden ticket? What's the place to go see that?
So you'll need a little bit of PGL. In order to have PGL, you'll just buy some off an exchange like Nudex. You just basically log right onto the site at prospectors.io. You'll log on with Scatter, and you'll just there's a spot there for the auction and there's a spot there for the golden ticket. So once you're logged on with Scatter, you can just buy a ticket and it will just and like you said, it's a simple asset, so it'll just be stored for you until the game starts. And when the time comes, you'll just be able to trade that golden ticket in for to board the ship to the prospectors and arrive 3 days early, as the team says. Cool. So yeah, and like I said, the auction's going on now. It's going on for about another 2 weeks. And so anybody who's interested in getting in the game and having a little bit of sort of a head start, having yourself some tools to sort of start the game, go and get yourself a little set of tools from the auction. Also right on the site, prospectors.io. And you'll need some PGL to take part, and you can just buy yourself some tools or a researcher set or an entire building. Killer.
And on my end, this is the EOSWriter Podcast Day. So we had an interesting. We're teaming up with the EOSWriter. We'll just make it quick. The EOSWriter and the EOS Podcast, we are merging, and we're going to do something awesome together. So the EOSWriter Podcast. We're figuring all that out, but keep an eye open for kind of how this pans out. But we're going to combine resources, team up like we would in Prospectors, and make some really cool stuff happen. The plan is to be a big community resource for quality information about what's going on in the EOS blockchain.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, so the EOSWriter
partnership, man.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Kenny's doing big things over at the EOSWriter, and so this podcast also is a podcast. It's not just a fun YouTube channel. It is a podcast so that people can listen. So you can listen while you're driving to work, or while you're sitting in traffic, or maybe even while you're supposed to be working, maybe while you're blowing glass.
I listen to you when I'm working. Every time you make a show, I have it on while I'm blowing glass.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Good to hear. Yeah. And also have a proxy, Mr. Happy Money Proxy, if you're looking for someone to vote on your behalf, Mr. Happy Money Proxy. And I vote for block producers that are transparent, empowering, and building together. Those are the what I look for. So, and I've interviewed most of the block producers. So that's the thing. That's it. That's the show for today. It was rad to talk to you, Bonz. Rad project,
that's
man.
Awesome. Thanks so much, bro. Yeah. I had a great time, man.
Cheers.
Peace, brother.
The money is not the prime asset in life. Time is, and your time is just a